Welcome to Agriculture on Cite. Today we have a special guest, a pioneering woman in the dairy industry. I'm at the Precious Life Farm to document her journey and the challenges that she has actually faced in navigating, the dairy industry, as well as her vision for the future of dairy farming. Welcome, Agnes Kwenda.
Hi, Busani. How are you?
Great. Wonderful so that you can join us for our program.
Thank you.
Let me just start. What inspired you to go into dairy farming? It's a sector that has predominantly been dominated by men.
Yes. The inspiration was that this is Precious Life Foundation. We work with vulnerable women. So my inspiration was that we couldn't buy milk off the shelf for those teenage mothers who needed milk every day for their babies and for them. So we started by buying one cow, Peggy, and Peggy came to the farm, would give us milk. The children would have all the milk they needed. The mothers would have milk for the tea and even some mercy for their sadza. So that was the inspiration. But dairy is very exciting. So we decided, let's get the next cow and the next cow. And then that's how we started dairy on this farm.
Interestingly, we mentioned that you started with one cow.
Yes.
Could it be that Peggy that we saw when you actually came
Certainly, Peggy is still alive. We told ourselves when Peggy is done, we're not taking her to the abattoir. We have a proper funeral and have a gravesite for Peggy because Peggy started us off 2019. She has given us quite a lot of babies up to now, and she's still going, and we're still breeding her. Very beautiful cross between beef and Jersey. In this farm, we do lots of dairy crosses because we realize that dairy crosses are cheaper when it comes to our vet bills. They tend to be hardier, so when they get sick, they tend to recover. Whereas the pure breeds tend to die quickly and their vet bills are very high. So that's why we've got to prefer crosses rather than pure breeds.
Interestingly, because you mentioned that your inspiration was also to work, help other vulnerable women. Yes. I'm intrigued here. What does it really take for a woman to actually be a dairy farmer? Only one here.
It's actually very natural for us women to be dairy farmers because naturally we are naturals. So a dairy cow needs care, it needs love, it needs considerations. On this farm, we don't throw stones at cows. We encourage them, we talk to them, because that's how delicate a dairy cow is. So I encourage other women to get into dairy because it's a natural process. After going through childbirth and taking care of our own children, we can extend that into cows. Men tend to be more in dairy cows because of the funding part of the story. But in terms of nurturing, women are the best when it comes to dairy farms.
What kind of challenges have you encountered, in going into dairy farming, and how has your experience as a woman really, in that sector, helped in terms of overcoming those challenges? Yeah.
So the biggest challenge we have is funding. We don't always have the financial muscle that our male counterparts have. So we've had to grow the dairy one cow at a time, keeping our own heifers, buying weights cheap and stuff like that to be able to carry on. Otherwise, naturally, we should be able to be at par or better than our counterparts. Then the other challenge has been irrigation. So the first one is to actually buy the actual stock, the capital of having the cows. The other one is irrigation. We were working in the ryegrass field. We don't have the irrigation facilities. I would love to have 5 hectares of ryegrass. It's good for the cows. They love it. You saw how they were eating it. But I don't have the irrigation infrastructure to put much more than the half hectare that I've got. So that's a challenge. The other challenge is power, energy and power. We've tried to overcome that by having a biodigester. We've got 2 biodigesters here. We use the biodigesters for all the stuff they use for their cooking, and we use what remains as a biofertilizer to stop us from buying compound D. And to some extent, we buy very little AN for our fields. So that helps us in carrying on. But still, even the infrastructure and the technology of a biodigester, it needs money. But we then just found out that it's better for us to die once. You invest in the biodigester, you're going to have fertilizer for a long time. You're going to cut down on your ZESA bills. We've got solar panels. We had to take a loan from our processor Denderi in order to put the solar panels and be able to carry on. So yes, challenges have been real and have been there, but we've had to try and see how we can minimize our challenges.
You're talking about challenges. I really want to zone in on what made you really wake up and smell the coffee that changed, you know?
That's an easy one, Mr. Bafana. One time we had a transformer pack up on us. Dairy is a fresh industry, as you can imagine. So I was only selling 1 milking out of the 4 milkings that the processor comes and picks up. So can you imagine how much milk I lost? So I had to think how can we bring in renewable energies. So hence the solar, hence the biodigesters, to make sure that we can be self-sufficient on the energy side. It took us 4 months before the transformer was replaced. And it took us another 2 months for the cows to come back to peak production, which they were doing. So we lost 6 months of production. So that was enough to smell the coffee. It really was.
And what keeps you standing, given that, you know, there are these sometimes unexpected, you know, challenges that come in? What has kept you standing?
It's an exciting venture, dairy, naturally, and we've got a very good dairy association of Zimbabwe, which we rely on. So that one keeps us going, and the excitement is there. But at the same time, dairy is a long-term project, so you can't face a hurdle like ZESA and then you decide to quit, because you may not have realized your profits yet. So you've just have got to think outside the box. We've got other dairy farmers which we depend on to say, guys, I'm in trouble, this is what's happening, and they may be able to lend you a hand. So that has been keeping us going, really. It's a long-term project.
Right. From 1 cow to milking 20 cows, how have you financed this operation? And
lots of personal financing has happened, but at the same time, we've also kept all the heifers that are born here. We've done, instead of selling those heifers, we've been able to grow them and see them coming into milk, And like I told you, we've been going, this is our 6th year. So lots of heifers have been born, and they're beginning to also have their children dropping. So that's how we've basically financed the farm.
Feed management is a very critical component in dairy farming. Maybe could you explain why it's so important to in fact manage your feed, you know, on the farm?
Very, very important, because 80% of the cost of milk is feed. So you've got to handle that, otherwise the 20% margin will not be enough if you don't handle it properly. So we are very environmentally conscious. We clean up the deltas, the Maseses, both Chibuku and clear beer. That's the stuff that we use. It has got good protein, good energy. We then buy in bran, soya, sunflower, sometimes cotton cake, to do our own on-the-farm ration to make sure we feed these cows. And our cows are used to that, to the extent that here on this farm, my best milker gives me up to 24 liters per day from just using masese, a little bit of bran, a little bit of soya meal, and so on. So yes, that's what we've been able to do to survive. If we feed from the bag, the profit margins are much, much smaller. It can be 5% or the same as feeding from the bag. So we don't feed from the bag, and we are content with our 24 liters. Probably if you fed from the bag, we're going to get maybe 30, 35 liters. But with the 35 liters, the feed it still takes 95% of that money. So there's no point. We are into dairy to make money.
And you are also growing, and also you are actually growing rye,
Ryegrass and lucerne. I'll show you some lucerne up there. We do that to also complement. And look, the world is going on to pasture-based as the sustainability of a farm. So we're trying hard to get into what everybody else is now appreciating as organic rather than using grain. We use pasture-based. The cows love the grass. And you can see it's a natural way in which a cow is supposed to eat nutritious grass, and then that nutritious grass is turned into milk. But irrigation infrastructure becomes the limiting factor. So if we've got irrigation on this farm, we can turn to pasture-based milk straight away because it's cheaper, it's easy. But because of those challenges, we can't.
Right. You talk about sustainability, particularly in a dairy operation. I also need to find out the use of chemicals and really pesticides really on the farm. How have you managed that to ensure that at least they are used safely and they do not affect the quality of your products?
Milk.
Yeah.
Definitely. We are on our way to getting out of pesticides and chemicals. Why? They're expensive. Just looking at them, the expensive one. Two, I think they actually contribute to lots of these diseases that people now have. So the cleaner the milk is, the cleaner the farm is, the better for our populace, really. So we use quite a lot of natural-based things to clean up, like I'm saying fertilizers. We hardly use any fertilizers because we just value add our own cow dung, and that's used. On aphids and so on, we use safe sunlight liquid, vinegar to try and clean up aphids, to clean up those areas like that. We use this, like you saw, the cows came in, they did poo in the pastures. That is good for the pasture itself. So in as much as we can, we try to limit even antibiotics. When a cow is now given antibiotics, we've looked at it after a few number of days to see that if we don't give the antibiotic, the cow is going to die. We actually have got a little booklet that we got from ZADF, which shows natural ways of getting rid of of helping our cows, like mint leaves with lemon. We use it for mastitis, things like that. So when we introduce the antibiotic, we've tried that and it hasn't worked. We use mastimint from Red Dane to try and encourage and take away mastitis from our cows. So as much as we can, we want to go natural, but it will take time. But if they eat healthy, they tend to be not sick. So once we can establish a pasture-based way of feeding them, there will be less disease, obviously. That's where we want to go.
And what does it take to actually reach that goal?
We need funding. Again, it comes to funding. If I can irrigate 4 hectares, wow, I'm there. I'm where I want to be. But the banks that we've approached that tend to say they can give us that kind of money, the interest rates are too high. And sometimes their demands are such that you can't meet them. So there's still a gap in the funding for agriculture, especially for small farmers like us.
Do you think maybe some alternative financing mechanisms would actually work?
We've done that, like savings programs, Mukando. We've done it as small-scale farmers, but it's still very hard for us to say we give each other $1,000 every month. The farming operations would suffer. So we'll end up like giving each other $150 per month, and there could be 3 to 5 of us depending, but it's not a lot of money to get the irrigation infrastructure into play. So that's a problem.
You are producing about what, 200, over 200 liters of milk on a weekly basis?
Well, not on a weekly, on a daily
basis. Wonderful. Well, why are you marketing your milk?
We don't have to market. The processor just comes here with his tanker every 2 days. So if they come today, they jump tomorrow and they come and pick up the milk from here. So the market is huge. Zimbabwe needs about 140 million liters per year, and we're actually not quite there yet. I think we're on 120 or 115 million liters as of last year. We'll probably meet that target this year, but the money that's given to the actual farmer is still a problem. Here we've got very good quality milk. We get 64 cents per liter. But when you see the 1 liter being sold in the shop, of course they would have value added it. It's $170, $170 cents, which is $70. I'm not even getting a third of that money. So the scales are skewed to some extent. I'm still grateful the processor can come and pick the milk, but I would love to get more for my raw milk than what I'm getting. But at the same time, the processor also says they would not be viable if they give me more than the 64 cents that I'm doing. So I either have to be a processor or it's a numbers game to be able to milk much more than what I'm milking for me to have the margin that I want.
And what are the opportunities for value addition, for operation like yours?
They are there and they are not there. The pasteurizers that we need, in Zimbabwe we can't sell raw milk. So you need a pasteurizer. A pasteurizer, you're not looking at anything less than 3,500, 5,000. And getting it from South Africa is a second-hand thing. In Zimbabwe, I don't think there's a company that's even manufacturing the pasteurizers, which makes it very hard for small people like us. I just need a pasteurizer that does 500 liters per day with my projection of growth. But they aren't there. You can only find them in South Africa. And then, thank goodness, the government has taken off the import duty. You only pay 15%, which is good, but they're not readily available. So it's not like tomorrow I can wake up and say I want to be a processor and I can do it. I can't.
Like, what kind of incentives do you feel could actually be extended to the dairy farming industries, and particularly, small-scale dairy farmers like yourselves?
We want our universities to be relevant. Can you imagine if NAST had students investigating on smallholder dairy farmers producing a smaller pasteurizer that can do 200, even 100 liters, 50 liters to 500 liters. That would be amazing. We're buying it local. Even the machinery that can do little yogurts and stuff like that for small-scale farmers. Everything is big. And as a small-scale farmer, you feel intimidated. And for a long time, you have to depend on the processors to be your paymaster. That's just what's there. So the relevance has got to start from even our institutions to say, what are you doing about the small-scale farmers? Not only dairy farmers, but even crop farming. We still have got the traditional whole that was produced 100 years ago. If our institutes come up with a small tiller that can work even for somebody who has got less than an acre to produce, can you see how far we would go? So I think a lot of it has got to do with our education system in terms of relevance. If they can come with relevant tools that are good for small-scale farmers, it will be amazing.
Already we were talking about technology. Yes. Technology is transforming the agricultural sector in a big way. Yes. And how are you, applying, technologies and innovations here in your farm?
Yes, I've got the biodigesters that we're talking about. The other technologies that we have, we've got a two-wheeler tractor somewhere that we have. And even the apps, I'm trying to use what is called dairy comp, but it's too big for my size, you know. There's also one called bovine sync. It's too big for my operations. But if we had the guys in electronics who can come up with a small app that a dairy farmer can just put and be able to monitor head health, monitor milk, monitor even heat, so that we know how to inseminate it, it would be amazing. We've started on artificial insemination, but both me and my managers are not trained. We've got to rely on people outside. And when you phone and you say, my cow is on it, come quickly, they might be in Kadoma or they're somewhere else where they're artificially inseminating. So we need to be trained. We are putting that into play soon enough to know how to do our own artificial insemination so that we are independent. But then it comes with its things. We now need a proper tank that can hold nitrogen for a long time. We need a smaller tank that we can throw the semen into, things like that. But we are grabbing even the small technology like a WhatsApp. I don't live on the farm. My manager every night sends me the milk volumes on WhatsApp, and I'm able to assess them. And I'm able to actually deduce that this animal is sick because its milk volumes have fallen by 2 liters. There's a problem there. Things like that. It's still helpful, but we wish we could have more or could use more technology.
Interesting. So there is also the application really of passion and having the vision, as it were. Interestingly, what advice would you give, any particularly young women who wish to enter, the dairy industry?
It's an exciting venture. We actually say dairy is addictive because once a dairy farmer, it's very difficult to come out of it. And there are opportunities. We don't have to market our products. The processors are looking for more milk. I'll say, girls, come in. The door is open, really. The price for the first initial cow to get into ranges from 1,500 to 1,800 for in cow heifers. So if you save enough, you can buy your one cow. And you can really start with one cow. It's possible. I did it. You can do it too. It's possible.
Thank you, Agnes Kwenda, for sharing your success story. There you are. You gave us the insights and your experiences, and it is clear that farming really requires passion, a lot of innovation, and also really the real application really of technology. And you embody all of them.
I try. Born before computers, but I try.
There you are, viewers. Thank you for joining us. This is Asake Online, and my program was actually Agriculture on Site. Join us next time for inspiring stories on agriculture from the field. And remember to actually follow us on all our social media platforms. I'm Busani Bafana, the Agriculture on Site.